Hello, Dr. Robert here. I get asked quite a bit about working as an expressive arts therapist, particularly around the expressive arts therapy in line with the transpersonal, the spiritual aspect of it. And I get asked about, well, what about interpretation? We, as art therapists, get asked a lot about, well, here's an image. And the image comes from the client or the other person. And they'll kind of say, well, I looked up in a book and I found that it means this. And they'll give their take on it, whatever it is, from the book that does the interpretation. Now, we approach things in a very different way to that. We actually ask into the client, well, what does this mean for you? What memories perhaps are there for you? What feelings are there for you? How are you understanding this image at this time? Feel into the image. Stay with the image. Let it work you. It's their image. It comes from their deeper aspects of soul or spirit. So we do not want to get in the way of that by placing our interpretation upon it. So the question is not simply, is interpretation right or wrong, but rather, who owns the meaning? Who owns the meaning? The pros of therapist interpretation, there's a few of them. Offering perspective and containment. A thoughtful interpretation can help a client see patterns that they may not yet recognize. When offered tentatively, it can create a bridge between the unconscious material and conscious awareness. This may deepen insight and accelerate integration. Another area where it could be useful, language for the inarticulate. Sometimes the art holds something the client cannot yet name. A therapist's gentle reflection can provide language that stabilizes overwhelming experience. As Sean McNick suggests, images often speak when we enter into dialogue with them. A therapist's interpretation can be part of that dialogue rather than a pronouncement. Witnessing and validation, that's the third area. Sensitive interpretation can communicate deep witnessing. I see this. It may affirm themes of strength, grief, longing, or resilience that the client unconsciously embedded in the work. But there's cons as well, as I've already mentioned. So let's have a look at those and bring those into the light. Undermining agency. If the therapist claims authority over meaning, the client's agency can subtly erode. The artwork becomes something to be decoded by the expert, rather than discovered by the creator. This shifts power away from the client's inner authority. There's also the risk of projection, and we all project. Interpretation may reveal more about the therapist's unconscious than the client's symbols. Symbols are multivariant. A snake to one person may signify danger, to another, transformation. Premature interpretation risks imposing narrative. There's another element in the transpersonal spiritual realms as well. Reducing mystery. Expressive arts thrive in ambiguity. Overinterpreting can collapse the imaginal field into fixed meaning. Closing rather than opening exploration. At its heart, expressive arts supports self-agency, the client as meaning maker. The creative act itself is an exercise in responsibility. I choose this colour. I shape this line. I move this way. Interpretation that dominates can interrupt this developmental process. In contrast, when a therapist asks, what does this image say to you? Or, if this movement had a voice, what would it express? They return meaning to its source. This fosters self-trust and strengthens the client's capacity to interpret their own inner life. Carl Rogers emphasized the organism's innate tendency towards growth when provided the right conditions. Expressive arts aligns with this principle. The client's psyche is not a problem to be solved, but a wisdom to be encountered. A wisdom to be encountered. Ultimately, expressive arts therapy is not about being interpreted. It's about becoming the interpreter and author of one's own life.